Hi again, everyone. Gary Digital Williams here on Beltway Boxing News and Notes on the Boxing on the Beltway Podcast Network. And the Boxing on the Beltway Podcast Network can be heard on Spreaker, Stitcher, iHeartRadio, also on Google Podcasts, Spotify, Podcast Addict, and also on TuneIn. So we have a lot of places you can hear the Boxing on the Beltway Podcast Network. And we're going to continue this week with our tributes to some of our great boxers the past 20 years or so. And we have a guy we're going to focus on this week that wasn't a world champion, never got to the level of the world championship, but there was no bigger fan favorite during the Boxing on the Beltway era and no more popular boxer than the man we're going to talk about today. This guy set a whole part of the area on fire through his time, and he has a very interesting story. We're going to talk about that as well. We also have a postscript about the show we did last time out, our last podcast, because there are some things I forgot to talk about when we did our tribute to Boxing Spotlight, and I just was reminded of those things this week, so I want to talk more about that in this podcast. Boxing on the Beltway Podcast Network brought to you as always by Real-Time Pain Relief. From boxers to ballerinas, for shoulder pain, muscle strain, everything between, Boxing on the Beltway recommends Real-Time Pain Relief, the fast, natural, plant-based ointment. Go to freepainoffer.com, buy $10 worth of Real-Time Pain Relief. You get a free $10 tube of Real-Time Pain Relief, the official pain relief of the 2020 Daytona 500. Rub it on, the pain is gone in real time. And by DeborahSpears.com, she has great weight loss tips, great jewelry, and great training methods. All Deborah, that's Debra Spears.com. Now, before we get underway, I have to send my deepest condolences to my broadcast partner, Juan Marshall. He recently lost his father. His father passed away recently. He had been a little ill for quite some time, and he did not die of COVID-19 or coronavirus. He did not pass away because of that. He passed away of other ailments that he had. And, because of the COVID-19, they really can't give him a proper funeral. So there will be funeral arrangements we talked about a little bit later on. But it's been really tough over the last few years for my partner, Juan Marshall. First, he lost his younger brother. And then, he had some health issues of his own. And now he's lost his father. He's written some beautiful tributes to his father. And so we want to definitely send our deepest condolences to my good friend, my partner, Juan Marshall, for the passing of his father. Also, we got to send our best wishes to promoter Tyrone Johnson. Tyrone Johnson, back in the 90s, was part of Madness Connection. That was a very big part of my early career. He had some great bouts, seeing his matchmaker Cleveland Burgess. They had some tremendous boxing cards at the Washington Convention Center and other places around the area. And he apparently contracted COVID-19 disease, so hopefully he will get better. In fact, we record this today. It's his birthday as well, so we wish him happy birthday. We better wish him again that he passes through this whole thing with COVID-19, gets better real soon. So our best wishes to matchmaker of Madness Connection, Tyrone Johnson. Now, our tribute today is a very interesting one because this is a guy who I have the utmost respect for. He actually is one of my closest friends in this business. I want to say that up front. He's a great guy. He and I have gotten along very, very well over the years. And he did something in this area that very few have done over the years. And I don't think anybody did it to the level that he did. We've had fan favorites before. Boone Poltz, for example, was a big fan favorite. Former WBO, very first WBO cruiserweight champion. He was a big favorite. Fan favorite in the area. Fernando Guerrero down in Salisbury, Maryland was a big favorite. No question about that. He would pack him in Salisbury at the Wycomico Civic Center and also at the Purdue Stadium, down baseball stadium. You had Scott Sigmund up in western part of Virginia, up there in Lynchburg, in that area. He's done well, but really, truly, no one has done it. And I guess I should really include Lamont Peterson here in D.C. Lamont Peterson is a fan favorite, and there are people who come to see him fight wherever he goes. But I really don't think anyone did it to the level as the guy we're going to talk about. And he got some breaks, no question about that. But really, when it came down to it, he set the Virginia part of the Beltway, especially the Northern Virginia part of the Beltway, on fire during his career. We're talking about Jimmy Lange. Jimmy Lange was a really solid professional boxer here in the Beltway area, but there are a few times in his career where things just really rolled for him. And he was so much fun to watch him fight and go to his events. And much like some of the other fan favorites I just mentioned, they liked him not because he was such a great boxer. He was a great boxer. He really was. But they liked him because of who Jimmy Lange was, the type of person he was. Type of not only type of athlete he was, but the type of man that he was. That he is, actually. He's still around. Man that he is. And that was really a major part of his success in boxing in the area. So we're going to look at his career today. His career started on February 22nd, 1998 with a first-round knockout TKO win over Robert Hunt. That was at the D.C. Army in Washington, D.C. Now, Robert Hunt at that time had 7 pro bouts, although he had lost all 7, 0-7. And Lange made very short work of him. And now, in his third pro bout, Lange would lose a 4-round majority decision to Kevin Collins on March 27, 1998. During that time, he would continue his career after he was 2-1, and then he started fighting at a place that's so well known and truly one of the greatest promotions in Beltway boxing history. We're talking about Michael's 8th Avenue, Glen Burnie, Maryland, and Ballroom Boxing. And Jimmy Lange really started to become a local star in that area. A lot of people think it started in Virginia. It really didn't for him. It really didn't. He was from Great Falls, Virginia, not originally, but he lived in Great Falls, Virginia, originally from D.C. And a lot of people think it started in Virginia later on. We'll get to that part of the story later on in just a little bit. But the Jimmy Lange story really started at Michael's 8th Avenue in Glen Burnie, Maryland. And his first bout there, he scored a first-round knockout over Diamond Matt Hill. And Diamond Matt Hill was a young man who fought just like everybody in the Beltway as a gatekeeper. And at that time, he was starting his career, so we didn't know he was going to be a gatekeeper at that time. But Matt Hill was just starting his career at that time. This was on January 28th, 1999. And he would fight at Michael's Avenue again in March of 1999, won a 4th-round TKO against Andre Gaskins. Now, if there was one bout that put Jimmy Lange on the map, really, his first bout anyway, it took place on March 13th, 1999 at Michael's 8th Avenue against James Johnson. Now, this bout is still talked about when people discuss the history of ballroom boxing. We may want to get into that history a little bit later on too. We can, but this bout is considered to this day as perhaps the best bout in the history of ballroom boxing. Ballroom boxing stretches from 1999 all the way up almost until 2010, just about. And this was an incredible bout. It ended in a 4-round draw, but it was a knockdown, drag-out fight from beginning to end. And it was a majority draw. I think Jimmy Lange won my bout on the card, 39-36, one scorecard. The other 2 scorecards were 38-38. Tremendous bout, no question about that. So that was on March 13, 1999. And Jimmy Lange would continue on. He would beat the likes of Benji Singleton, who was a gatekeeper extraordinaire back in those days. That was in November of 1999. He beat the likes of Kevin Carter and Ed Goins, another gatekeeper. And then on May 10th, 2001, Jimmy Lange would face James Johnson a second time in an 8-round bout. Now, the first bout was a 4-round bout, but after the bout against Johnson, Lange would progress to the 6th round, and his first 8-round scheduled bout would be against James Johnson again, March 10th, 2001. And Jimmy Lange would win that bout by 5th-round TKO. I do remember that bout. Also a very good bout, but nowhere near the type of bout that he scored against Johnson the first time. But still, it was a great win for him. And Jimmy Lange would be pretty much undefeated that much. He'd only lost that one time to Kevin Collins back in March of 1998. And he would continue on until 2004. And then in 2004, he'd won a tough 10-round split decision to Sammy Sparkman. I really thought that Sammy Sparkman actually won that bout. And there was another bout that Jimmy Lange fought that I thought Jimmy Lange had lost the bout. And that was against Gerald Reed. And that was on March 28, 2002 at Constitution Hall in Washington, D.C. And I really thought that Jimmy Lange lost that bout. In fact, I see Gerald Reed from time to time. He's a not outstanding trainer. And he still thinks he beat Jimmy Lange that day. And Sammy Sparkman, that was his third 10-round scheduled bout. And he would beat Sammy Sparkman by split decision on May 1st, 2004. Now, right around the time of that bout, we were having something going on here in the Beltway. And it was actually part of something that was going on all around the country. And that's with the tryouts for the very first season of The Contender. Now, hopefully you remember the Contender Show. Contender Show was a show that gave mostly up-and-coming young boxers an opportunity for exposure and possible stardom and put them on a path to being a world champion eventually. And it did happen for many of the boxers. Sergio Moore became a champion. I remember him becoming world champion. A little bit later on, Cornelius Bundridge in another season of The Contender became a champion. And a couple others became world champions. And I remember distinctly the tryouts they had in Washington, D.C. I remember attending the tryouts, and I got a chance to meet Frank Stallone, who worked with his brother Sylvester Stallone, who was the first host of the show, along with Sugar Ray Leonard. And it had a lot of different people trying out for the show. And Jimmy Lange would make the list. He would make the show. And again, he was on there with some really good people. Sergio Moore, Joey Gilbert, the number one dad, Anthony Bonsante. Of course, there was the tragedy of the suicide of Najee Turpin. We'll get to that in a moment. We're going to talk about that a little bit too. And many others who were on that show. Juan De La Rosa, Alfonso Gomez, on that first season. And I remember when when we saw the first episode and all the boxers came into the Contender gym, Jimmy Lange was the only one wearing a suit and tie that day. It was a very great image. Everybody was talking about him, how he was professional, GQ and all that. But it was really a good look. And, Jimmy Lange was at that time privileged to be a part of that show because, of course, Sugar Ray Leonard was co-host. And, of course, Jimmy Lange and many other people in the Beltway had admired Sugar Ray Leonard for so many years. And so they went through the show. Now, the first year of the show, the boxing was good, although it didn't show all the bouts in their entirety. They had those silly sort of beat the clockish stunts they had to do, which was they kind of pulled away from the actual boxing itself. And when Jimmy Lange's turn came to fight, and of course, for those who don't remember the Contender, at the end of every show, two guys would fight. They would choose each other who would fight. Whoever had control of the choice would choose the other one to fight. And Jimmy Lange and Joey Gilbert fought. And Joey Gilbert defeated Jimmy Lange by fifth round unanimous decision. They only had 5-round bouts back then. They still do. The Contender only had 5-round bouts. It's a tough loss for Jimmy. No question about that. He was eliminated. He did not win a Contender. But what it did was elevated his fan base. And people saw the type of man that he was. He was married to another person that he's married to right now. But they saw who he was, saw the nice person he was, got the whole thing with his family because his father is very much involved in his life and his career, and Johnny Lange. And it was just a great look for him. And in turn, a great look for the Beltway. We put out good people, as I've said many times before. And so when the final episode of the Contender took place, the Joey Gilbert fight took place on September 7th, 2004. It was in Pasadena, California. But the championship, the $1 million championship bouts, took place on May 24, 2005 in Caesars Palace in Las Vegas. And due to some great fan voting, Jimmy Lange made the fan favorite bout. He took on Tariq Salmaki and won a 5-round majority decision there. And so he was able to get on it. And again, this elevated his career, elevated his personal part of his career. They knew who he was. He was a fan favorite. And in the Beltway, he was fantastic. And he, along with his father, got together with one of the best PR firms in the area, if not the best PR firm in the area, Brotman Winter Freed. And they started promoting Jimmy Lange. They started getting press releases on Jimmy Lange. He had one of the best matchmakers in the world, J.D. Brown, Hall of Fame, DC Boxing Hall of Famer. And they also had one of the den mothers for the contender with him, and that was Jackie Callan. Jackie Callan was the den mother for the first season contender. Now, the situation was the boxers could not fight while the contender shows were being shown. They had to sign a contract that they could not fight during that time. And most of the boxers were able to adapt to that. One of them didn't. That was Najee Turpin out of Philadelphia. And because he could not get any money, could not find any other jobs, he killed himself. And I remember Jimmy Lange being so disappointed, as all of them were, but he was devastated by that. He was devastated by Najee Turpin's suicide. It was really a tough time. So he could not fight during the time. None of the contender boxers could fight until the contender itself was over. Once it was over, somehow the Lange family, Brotman Winter Freed, J.D. Brown, they entered into a contract with the George Mason University, what was then known as the Patriot Center. Now it's known as Eagle Bank Arena. But Patriot Center, they started promoting shows at the Patriot Center with Jimmy Lange as the headliner. And they would pack that place. 3,000, 4,000 people would be there. And the first bout that Jimmy would fight at the Patriot Center, George Mason University, was against a guy by the name of Perry Ballard. Now, Perry Ballard is such a wonderful story in and of itself. He was out of West Virginia, and he was a little older than Jimmy. And he's one of the few guys I knew in boxing that didn't need to fight. He wanted to, and he didn't have to fight. Perry Ballard was very successful in his personal life, and he fought just really for the fun of it. He was undefeated. He was a good boxer. Didn't fight too many great people, and Jimmy Lange was probably the best person he ever fought. And on September 17, 2005, the two of them meet at the Patriot Center. Packed house there. Perry Ballard could talk. He could talk. No question about that. He talked to a lot of the people in that building as well. So between Jimmy Lange's popularity and Perry Ballard's ability to talk, and his popularity too, he was popular as one at that time. Jimmy Lange and Ballard would meet. Perry Ballard would meet, and Lange would win the bout by 4th round TKO. And it was a great bout. It really was a fantastic bout. No question about that. Then on February 18, 2006, Lange would meet his old rival from the contender, Joey Gilbert, in about scheduled for 12 rounds. Is for the vacant WBO, the NABO middleweight championship. And unfortunately, Lange got beat by Gilbert by 3rd round TKO. It was a tough bout all the way around, and he just could not handle Gilbert's power at that time. So that was Lange's 3rd loss, the second to Joey Gilbert. October 7th, 2006, Jimmy Lange would bounce back. He would score a 10th round TKO over Thomas Wilt. That was a great bout, a fantastic bout. Could have gone either way. And Lange would come up with a really nice knockout at the end to win that bout. The second next bout would be on December 9th, 2006. That was the first of two bouts against Fontaine Cabell out of Florida. And Fontaine Cabell was a pretty good middleweight, super welterweight at that time. There was a possibility he would have fought for a title at one point, even though his record, he had 6 losses going into that bout, but he still was a very good boxer. The first bout would end in a draw, 12-round draw, split decision draw. So they did it again on May 12th, 2007. And another great bout, Lange would win by 8th round TKO. Now, during that time, myself and the fight doctor Jerome Spears would be able to videotape these bouts and would do commentary for the bouts. They would hire us to do it. A lot of the remnants of Boxing Spotlight, they would hire us to do it, and we did commentary for a lot of these bouts going up. It was really going forward. So May 12, 2007, Lange would beat Cabell for the WBC Continental Americas Super Welterweight title. Then on November 1st, 2008, Lange would score a 10th round unanimous decision win over Grover Wiley. That would be followed by a 5th round stoppage against Frank Hodling. That was on May 2nd, 2009 at the Patriot Center. And that would be followed by another boxer that was on the contender with Jimmy Lange, Jonathan Reed. That was on September 26, 2009, 9th round stoppage. And again, every bout that he would have at the Patriot Center would be packed. At the special entrance for Jimmy Lange, he would use Johnny Cash's "When the Man Comes Around." It would segue into Enter Sandman by who did that? Enter Sandman and Metallica. Metallica would sing that song. So it would always be an event when Jimmy Lange would come to the ring. Then on March 6, 2010, this is about for the WBC USNBC Super Welterweight title, again at the Patriot Center, and Lange would take on a guy by the name of Chase Shields. Now, this bout was a very wild bout, no question about that. And in the latter part of the fight, I think it was in the 10th or 11th round, 10th round must have been, the lights went out at the Patriot Center. I think we had a storm that day, and the lights went out. And when they came back, Shields dominated the fight, and he ended up winning the fight by unanimous decision. Lange didn't fight that well against Shields. That's probably, out of all the bouts that he had, other than the Gilbert bout, that's probably the worst performance that Jimmy had was against Chase Shields. He did not fight well at all against Chase Shields. And that was a tough loss. So he lost 12-round unanimous decision there. Once again, Lange would bounce back. July 10th, 2010, scored a second-round knockout, relatively easy knockout over Jimmy LeBlanc. There. And then the first, and maybe the first time in a while, and the last time I think he did this, Jimmy Lange would travel to Greensboro, North Carolina, and win a 6-round unanimous decision over Mike McPhail. Now, during that time period, no, it would not be the last time, but during that time period, we sensed that Lange was taking a lot of punishment, and his skills, quite frankly, were a little declining, just a little bit. I know my buddy Ben Hellman will hate me for saying this, but that's what it is. And unfortunately, it would happen that way. Now, he dominated Mike McPhail in that bout. He come back at Patriot Center November 6, 2010, and win a 10-round TKO win over Joe Wyatt. Another good bout. And that was for the NABA USA Super Welterweight title. So that was a big bout there. A little bit later on in June of 2011, he'd win a 6-round unanimous decision over Mike McPhail once again. He beat Raul Munoz in September 2011 by a 6-round TKO, followed by a 12-round unanimous decision in February 2012 against Ruben Galvin. Now, Jimmy Lange this time, of course, all over the place. He'd been doing interviews with different locations, very personable person. And in October of 2012, he met another person who was a personable person, good interview, and really felt he was not getting the recognition he deserved. And that person was Tony Jeter. Now, I could do a story about Tony Jeter. In fact, I think I will at some point, because his story is very wonderful in and of itself as well. But This particular bout, first bout between these two, took place on October 27, 2012, as I said, at the Patriot Center. And both men did interviews about the bout. Wasn't any bad blood between the two. Really wasn't. But the fight, the first bout, was brutal. In fact, it was so brutal that I'm not sure, although I do believe Tony Jetta won the bout, because other than the times during the fight when he was getting threatened, actually he lost points because of fouls, he still won the bout. It was a majority decision, should say. Joe Cooper scored the bout 95-95. I'm sorry, that's the wrong bout. Excuse me. It was a 10-round split decision. 10-round split decision. Brian Costello and Bill Austin scored about 90. I'm sorry. Let me try it again. Brian Costello scored about 94-91 for Jeter. Mark Diatillo scored about 93-92 for Jeter. Bill Austin scored about 94-91 for Jimmy Lange. And again, Jeter lost 4 points for low blows and was also knocked down during the bout. And yet he still went on to win the bout. Very, very strange situation. So that was a really, really tough bout in October 2012, October 27, 2012. Now, Jimmy Lange would take a 2-year hiatus and would come back and fight Jeter again, this time for the NABA USA middleweight title. And Jeter would win a little bit more demonstrably, although it was a majority decision. I think Jeter looked a little better in that fight than he did the first fight, and Lange did not look as good in the second fight. Lange did look good in the second fight, but he was able to match Jeter's performance that night. And Jeter would win a 10-round majority decision. Joe Cooper scored that bout 95-95. And then Brian Costello scored about 97-93. Martin Till scored about 99-91 for Tony Jeter. Both those bouts were done by two world-renowned referees. The referee for the first bout was Steve Smoger, who's now a Hall of Famer, and another guy who should be a Hall of Fame, International Boxing Hall of Famer, Bill Clancy, did the second bout. So it was really no bias either way. Of course, both guys were from the area. That was pretty much that. Then, finally, on October 17, 2015, Jimmy Lange would make his final appearance in the boxing ring. The Patriot Center now become the Eagle Bank Arena. And the most ironic thing about that particular bout, 7, 19, I'm trying to count how many times, 13, 14. Jimmy Lange made more than 20 appearances at the Patriot Center. Then the very last performance that he had, he was not the main event. Every fight he'd had going up to that point at the Patriot Center, Eagle Bank Arena, Lange was the main event. Except the very last time that he performed there. He was in the second bout of the night against another local boxer who now lives in Florida by the name of Mike Sawyer. And that bout, Lange would win a 5th round TKO, and that would be end of his career. But it was just very ironic after all that, and it wasn't lost on me at the Eagle Bank Arena on October 17, 2015, that as all these times, Jimmy Lange was the main event and was the showstopper for the Patriot Center / Eagle Bank Arena. His last appearance, he was in the second bout and not the main event. The main event of that night was Lamont Peterson taking on Felix Diaz. And, of course, that was the same card where Pritchard Colon got hurt in his bout against Terrell Williams. So it was really kind of a bittersweet ending for Jimmy Lange. But I talked to him recently. I talked to Jimmy recently. By the way, his final record was 39-6-2 with 26 knockouts. Excuse me. He's only knocked out once, and that was the bout against Joey Gilbert. Second bout against Joey Gilbert. So, a good career. Again, there was no better fan favorite in the Beltway than Jimmy Lange. He's going on to do some good things. He's working with the Washington football team as a strength and conditioning person there. And he's living a good life. I talked to him very recently when I had my issues, and actually I had made my transition to the other job I'm currently with now. COVID notwithstanding, of course. But Jimmy was the first to call me and see how I was doing. And we've remained good friends ever since. He's one of the best people I know. Just a first-class person all the way. And he had a first-class career. Even though it wasn't where he wanted to be, world championship, he got a lot of good exposure that other boxers did not have. But yet, he was able to use that exposure and use it to his own benefit. And he was able to really forge out a very good career. So that's our tribute to Jimmy Lange, one of the great boxers in the Beltway over the last 20, 25 years. Now, before we go, last time out, we did a tribute and a look back at Boxing Spotlight. And it was received pretty well. I do appreciate that. Now, what was interesting about that since then, one of our producers, our main producer, the guy who was the technical whiz behind Boxing Spotlight, Rudy Childs, well-known documentarian now, sent me a lot of footage from Boxing Spotlight. And took some time to look back on it. And we did some amazing things. I mean, I talked about it on the show last week, on the podcast last week. But I'd forgotten some of the things we had done. Like, for example, we did a card at Richmond, at the Richmond Center. It was the week of, I believe. Either the week of, the week after Vincent Peltway's bout against Terry Norris, which was across the street at the Richmond Coliseum. Richmond Center was on across the street from there. And it was a show that, through our marketing person at the time, Michael Williams, we promoted ourselves, really. We even had a Boxing Spotlight TV title bout between Napoleon Pitt out of Virginia and Mark Buchanan, who's out of North Carolina. And we also had special guest analyst, gentleman Jerry Cooney was there. He did some work with me on camera. And just a lot of things we had done over the years. I looked back at some of the interviews we had done. Again, we did a lot of interviews at Fight Night with the legends, the true legends. I mean, not to take away from guys who've been at Fight Night in latter stages of that event, but we talked to Kid Gavilan and Floyd Patterson, Archie Moore, of course, Michael Buff, who's the ring announcer for all Fight Nights. Just some great people, Carmen Basilio, just tremendous people that unfortunately no longer with us, but again, just legends. I interviewed Kid Gavilan along with his son. I turned to the camera and I said to the camera, if my father ever finds out, when my father finds out that I interviewed Kid Gavilan, he will flip, because that was one of his favorite boxers growing up. So I mean, it was just great things, and hopefully, like I said, we're working on some things and some ideas, hopefully be able to show some of this Boxing Spotlight footage, some classic footage on YouTube or some other streaming platform, because this is some great footage that really shows you, not only give you an idea of where we are now, but it also gives you an idea of where we were. The original first wave, so to speak, directly after Sugar Ray Leonard fought his career. The first wave of those boxers after that. Actually, the first and second wave, really, because the first wave was really the people like Simon Brown, Maurice Blocker, Daryl Tyson's part of that wave, and maybe a younger Sean Bay Mitchell may be in there as well. But after that, with the Mark Johnsons and Keith Holmes and William Joplin, we caught them right at the beginning of their careers. And so, to see it is phenomenal, and to see it again is really fantastic. So we'll keep you posted as we continue and we look at that and look into doing some more with that footage of Boxing Spotlight. That'll do it for another edition of Beltway Boxing News and Notes right here on the Box on Beltway Podcast Network. Once again, we're sponsored by free real-time pain relief. Go to freepainoffer.com. Buy $10 worth of real-time pain relief. You get a free $10 tube of real-time pain relief, the official pain relief of the 2020 Daytona 500. Rub it on. The pain is gone in real time. And by DeborahSpears.com. Great weight loss tips, great jewelry, great training methods at Deborah, Debra Spears.com. We'll hope to get some news from boxing, some actual boxing news sometime soon, but we'll continue our tributes until then. Thanks for joining us, everybody. I'm Gary Digital Williams. Always remember to keep supporting the best boxing in the world, the boxing along the Beltway. Thanks for listening. Take care.